I have 2 minutes past the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome all to the bi-monthly ROR Community Call. We have these every 2 months just to update everyone on what ROR is doing and to hear featured presentations from ROR adopters and integrators. As I mentioned, we love to hear about you, where you're calling from, how you're using or planning to use ROR in general, what your interest is in ROR. Always really happy to hear about anything to do with that. So let us know in the chat. These are meetings, not webinars, and so we do encourage heavy use of the chat. And we try to respond to that as well as post links and so on. So we encourage you to do that. Today, we'll be giving you some general updates, including sort of an exciting announcement about the ROR core team. We'll be giving you a few technical updates on particularly work to improve the stability of the ROR API, which is already quite stable. I'll be going over my usual stats about ROR adoption. And then we will hear a couple of presentations, first from Fatima Abu Lawi of Atypon, and then next from David Haber of the American Society for Microbiology. And then we should have plenty of time today for questions and comments and just updates from you on what you're doing with ROR. So for those of you who might be new to ROR, we are a global community-led registry of open persistent identifiers for research and funding organizations. We are operated as a collaborative initiative by California Digital Library, Crossref, and DataCite. We do not depend on grants and fees. We are signatories to the principles of open scholarly infrastructure, and all of our work is done in the open. We have open code, open data, and generally open processes, and we're very proud of that. We hold these community calls every other month, just to let you know what we've been up to, and just as an opportunity for you to give us feedback or ask questions about ROR, and to see ROR in action, as it were, from various adopters and integrators. We announce them on the ROR Community Forum, which you can yourself join. We post them on the events webpage of our site. I usually also email people who are subscribed to our newsletter, so you can always do that, but the ROR Community Forum is a more reliable way to make sure you get the announcements of these calls. We encourage you to participate in the chat in particular. We do record these meetings and we post the recordings publicly along with the slides and materials, and we will also email you the slides and a link to the recording after the event is over, usually within a few days. We also post this on our YouTube channel on YouTube. We do have a code of conduct that we ask you to abide by, which just in general means be excellent to one another. We'd like you to do that. And because we do have always quite a global audience, we encourage you to use the show captions feature in Zoom if you would like to see captions in your own language. We do hold the calls in English, but we're more than happy to attempt to support other languages. If you'd like to get involved beyond these calls, we always welcome requests for updates to the registry itself. And you can submit a curation request for a new ROR record or an update to an existing record, but you can also submit feature requests, bug reports for things like the ROR API on our roadmap. We do have discussion channels, which, you'll get announcements of various ROR initiatives and events on the ROR Community Forum. If you prefer the more technical discussions and the announcements of new releases of ROR, you can join the ROR Technical Forum. We specifically encourage people who are using the ROR API to join the ROR Technical Forum in particular. That we send important announcements to that list. And then, of course, we always want to hear from you about how you're using ROR or planning to use ROR. We maintain a public list of users of ROR. And so if you are using ROR and are not on that list, highly encourage you to tell us about how you're using ROR. So we just have a few very brief general updates, and in particular, one exciting announcement. We have a new team member. So some of you may know that Liz Krznaric, our previous technical lead, left a few months ago, and we are very excited to welcome Joseph Rhoads as our new technical lead. Joseph works for DataSite, and Joseph will tell you just a little bit about himself right now. Joseph?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to join the ROR team as the technical lead. For the past 4 years, I've been working at DataSite, and it's been a fantastic experience. And um, previous to that, I worked at the Brown University Library working on repository systems, and I'm looking to bring all that to the ROR team, and excited to work with all of you in the future. I'm
Wonderful.
based out of Valencia, Spain. If anybody's in the area, say hi.
Yes, very excited. Excited for that. Great. Just a couple of other general updates. Just yesterday, I participated in a terrific event that was organized by the PID Network Deutschland, PID Network Germany. So I think we'll have materials from that event. We heard some interesting things about RAID. I also heard and need to confirm a little bit that RAID itself has a new service and has integrated ROR into that user-facing service. I need to learn a little bit more about that. That's still sort of unofficial news at the moment, but that should be interesting to learn more about. So I'll post the materials from that as soon as I can. Next week, I'm headed to an interesting event about fair data for facilities and instruments. There's quite a lot of interest in using ROR IDs to identify facilities, which is sometimes appropriate, sometimes not. Research facilities include computing clusters, large telescope arrays, synchrotrons, things like that. So these are often organizations that are supporting research and sometimes are subunits of other organizations, sometimes are independent organizations. So we're going to discuss how best to support those use cases next week. And then, of course, we have our final ROR Community Call of the year happening in November. We're going to hear about ROR in the Janeway publishing platform, which is kind of an emerging publishing platform. And then we're also going to hear from Bassem Amira, who is on the call today to tell us about ROR in Tunisian research context. So we'll look forward to that. You can register for that now if you haven't already. And then just there is an upcoming webinar, details to be determined. For those of you who are in the publishing space, you may be wanting to watch out for this upcoming webinar where ROR will be presenting on publishing portfolios, how to make sure that your data is accurate, correct, complete, and harmonized across publishing portfolios. So that may be sometime in early December, still being organized, but I thought I'd give you a heads up now so you can watch out for it. We don't have a lot of recent blog posts, but I encourage you to read this one if you're at all interested, again, in ROR in the publishing context. We did a case study with Tony Alves, who's quite a well-known name in the publishing space. He works for Highwire Press as their vice president of product, and they have built ROR into one of their end-to-end publishing platforms called Digicore Pro. Tony said some very nice things about ROR, including that customers are asking for it, putting it in lists of requirements, which is great to know. And then one interesting thing I always think about these systems is when the systems have the capability of extracting information from just an uploaded document, an uploaded file, and matching that to ROR IDs. So apparently Digicore Pro can do that. One other interesting thing that is actually not on this slide that I learned about this system is that apparently they're also retrieving ROR IDs from the ORCID API. which is a great approach and something that I think more people should do. So would like to learn more about that and have been talking about that a bit with Orchid. I encourage you to read that blog post. And now I'm going to turn it over to Adam Buttrick, who has been sort of our interim tech lead in the months. We thought we wouldn't put Joseph on the hot seat quite yet. So Adam will give you some technical updates, and then presumably in November we can hear from Joseph. Adam?
Yeah, hi everyone. Adam Buttrick, interim tech lead, officially product manager for ROR. Here to provide some updates on our recent technical work. Next slide, please. Okay, so first off, in case you missed it, at the end of July, we switched the default schema version, our API, to use schema version 2. While this was potentially a breaking change for any applications that expected a V1 schema API response, good news here is that we had very little in the way of error reports from users after this new default was in place. So a good sign that people are either explicitly, stating a version in the request or making use of all the great features that exist in schema version 2, which I encourage you to do as well. This being said, I also do want to remind everyone that we will be fully deprecating schema and API version 1 at the end of 2025. So if your application is still making use of schema version 1, we ask that you please get started switching over to version 2 as soon as you can. This deprecation is occurring after extensive community feedback, both before and after the release of version 2 of our API, which was all the way back in March of 2024. Version 2 has now been available for more than a year, with our official versioning policy stating that we will give at least 1 year's notice before pursuing any deprecation. We now surpass in this time period and are providing several additional months to make the change to version 2, again, through the end of the year. So as always, if you need help with transitioning, please reach out to support@ror.org. Next slide, please. I'd also like to remind folks that we are now in a preview period for our new client ID functionality, which was also released back in July. This preview window is an opportunity for you to integrate client identification into your applications ahead of the full launch at the end of this year, but without any of the corresponding rate limits being enforced. We'll link documentation for this in the chat. When the preview period closes at the end of 2025, we will begin applying rate limits based on the presence or absence of client identification. So at that point, requests with a valid client ID will continue to enjoy our generous rate limit of 2,000 requests per 5 minutes. Requests without a valid client ID will be limited to 50 requests per 5 minutes. As we approach the end of this preview period, we'll be sending regular updates, through our various channels to make sure that everyone is prepared for this change. Next slide. Okay, so a couple more brief updates on additional technical work we've been doing. Our focus over the past couple of months has been on two projects in specific. The first are some backend infrastructure changes to help improve API performance through the addition of a caching layer. For context, only about 20 to 40% of traffic in a given month consists of truly unique requests. So by adding this caching, we can decrease overall load and improve API response times for any queries that are non-unique. The work on this is just about complete, so we'll be releasing here shortly. With the addition of caching, there will be no changes to any API response, just hopefully some better performance. So you'll see all the same results, no change in API behavior, just results returned more quickly for any that are not unique. Next slide. We're also wrapping up work on adding the new single search affiliation matching strategy to our API. So what is single search? If this is the first time you've ever heard of it, single search is a new affiliation matching strategy developed jointly by ROR and the data science team at Crossref. It outperforms our existing affiliation matching while at the same time being far faster and far more computationally efficient. It's already been used to match millions of new works and affiliations to varieties in OpenAlex. Crossref also produces a similar data set of all affiliations in Crossref matched with this strategy, all of which is detailed in a blog post, which we published earlier this year. We'll link this in the chat. While we benchmarked the new affiliation matching strategy extensively using some manually annotated data sets, our plan is to launch it in a beta phase over the course of the next month or so, allowing users to further evaluate and compare its performance. We know there are a lot of consumers of our affiliation matching, so we want to make sure that it meets their expectations. But once it has been battle tested by our community in this way, we'll then incorporate their feedback, make any necessary revisions, and otherwise begin planning on switching over the default affiliation matching endpoint to make use of single search. We don't have a precise timeline for this, probably Q1 of next year, if I had to guess. Again, here with this change, there would be no changes to the affiliation matching API response, just better matching results returned much faster. And since we get so much traffic, I hope everyone would be pleased with that. As we work through all this, we'll again be sending out corresponding comms, so make sure to stay tuned for those updates. Yeah, I'm going to pause here in case there are any questions.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
And this is a bit in the weeds.
Uh-huh.
But as many of you may know, the ROR API has 3 endpoints, of which this affiliation matching endpoint is one. And we do notice that it gets by far the most traffic of any of the endpoints. And we also see that many of the requests are not really for affiliation strings. Do you know what I mean? Do you have any comments about that, or does anybody want to weigh in from the group on which endpoint of the ROR API you use and why?
Yeah, I'll just make so we've done extensive work relative to our testing of single search to look at log data and see its performance relative to that and everything. My sense of the requests that we receive that are essentially non-affiliation strings or non-organization requests is that a lot of people are doing this work in a fully unsupervised fashion where they just have a large data set. They don't really know what's in there in terms of the affiliation strings, and they're just trying to return ROR IDs for its all. The single search matching strategy will actually perform a lot better at that task because it's much faster. So we should be able to process the data a lot more quickly.
Great. Yeah.
Yes. So prior to even launching it, I'm sorry. When we launch it in our beta phase, we'll have documentation that describes it. It's essentially just a parameter that will be applied to the existing matching strategy. We're not necessarily locked into that as a pattern for the kind of long-term querying of it, but it gives us an easy entry point for people to do testing. Essentially, it'll just be affiliation matching and something single search to allow for that query to be made with that strategy.
Just the question was, do we have any plan for documenting the
Oh,
matching
yes.
strategy?
Apologies.
Yeah. No,
Thank you. Yes.
and actually earlier in the chat, Riley had posted a kind of a helpful link to an initial blog post about that strategy. I can't remember if that blog post links to some of the code and so on. But yes, we will absolutely document that matching strategy once it's released. Any other questions about those technical updates? There's a question in the chat. Will it work
Sure.
similarly to the existing one based on the matching score?
Yes, it has. It uses some separate logic to actually calculate what is the correct match. So it doesn't work exactly the same as the existing matching in that the existing matching uses essentially multiple queries to return what it believes to be the correct result, which corresponds to that matching score that you're talking about. But this actually uses a single query to generate candidates and then find the correct match. Again, we tested this, and actually you can achieve better results with a single query than all of that kind of complex graph traversal and combination of queries. But yes, a similar matching score will be surfaced. One thing I'll note about the matching scores is those aren't, we provide those in the API, but there can be a little bit of a misnomer because there is an internal hierarchy that is used in the matching service that treats different types of matches as essentially better than others. So for example, an exact match of an organization name, if you send that, it's better than a fuzzy match to another organization name, even if they have similar matching scores. So what you really want to pay attention to in any affiliation matching results is whether there is a chosen true value, because that means that the strategy is confident in that specific result. And then Arthur had a question, how do updates affect the matching or caching? The caching will interact with the affiliation matching in the same way that it does for any other non-unique query. So if we get one query one time for an affiliation matching string and return a ROR ID result, that query comes in later, you'll get the same result back. So we don't have to freshly recalculate that, because again, our data only changes every 2 to 4 weeks. So there will be no changes kind of relative to that result. The cache expires after a short period of time. It really shouldn't have too much impact on if there's a data change with the release or something, and any interaction that that would have with matching results.
I'm loving the highly technical tone of these questions and answers. Anything else? Yeah, I think the takeaway should be that that part of the ROR API will work better and faster.
That's correct.
Right. Great. Okay, so I'm going to give you just some brief updates on ROR adoption. We don't have any particularly notable new ROR adoptions, at least that we know of yet, to announce. As I mentioned, I just heard anecdotally that the RAID service, we know that ROR is incorporated into the ROR metadata schema, but now apparently they've built some kind of user-facing form that I couldn't find that has ROR in it. So I think RAID, as we've been discussing in the chat, is ramping up for expansion, which is great to see. So hopeful to learn more about that. But we do have our general stats that I collect every couple of weeks. Crossref records with ROR IDs for affiliations or funders broke the 500,000 mark a couple of weeks ago. I posted about that on social media and it got a lot of attention, which is great. I think people really want ROR IDs to be more present in Crossref data than they are. So that's great. DataCite records with ROR IDs for affiliations is over 27 million. DataCite records with ROR IDs for funders is over 658,000. The main reason that number isn't higher is because I need to ask Japan's National Institute for Fusion Science to begin using ROR IDs to identify funders. Once they do that, that number will probably explode, if they do that, if they agree to. And then DataCite records with ROR IDs for publishers is over 32 million, keeping in mind that publisher in DataCite metadata doesn't mean exactly the same thing as it does in Crossref metadata. It generally means something like a hosting institution for a data set or a preprint or something like that, generally. But still, ROR IDs are used to identify those kinds of organizations in a lot of DataCite metadata. ORCID records with ROR IDs is over 5 million, nearly 6 million. And again, as I mentioned on the last call, this kind of understates the degree to which ROR ID is becoming the default in ORCID records, because new ORCID records are just full of ROR IDs. So when you look only at newly created ORCID records, I think it's a very, very high percentage of those that have ROR IDs for affiliations and or funders. Top providers of ROR IDs, no major changes here that I can see. I usually like to have this list both to recognize some of the people who are on the call, including Optica Publishing. I know we have a representative there who's doing a great job providing ROR IDs. American Physical Society also doing a fantastic job providing ROR IDs. Some of the other folks doing a great job providing ROR IDs to Crossref. And similarly for DataCite, that National Institute for Fusion Science has tremendously good metadata. And actually there was I should have saved this link, but there was a really interesting blog post on the DataCite blog quite recently about their work with NIFs to ingest a really staggering number of records. CNRS, the Figshare, CERN, that really represents Zenodo mostly. Other German organizations doing a fantastic job of using ROR IDs and providing them to DataCite. Here's the graphs over time, just quickly run through those. Here's Crossref records with ROR IDs in fundings. This big spike in ROR IDs in Crossref metadata is due to the Worldwide Protein Data Bank. So they actually, and in fact, they are, I think, based at least partly in Japan as well. And they are actually registering data sets with Crossref, which is a bit unusual, but yeah, they have registered a number of data sets with Crossref and have incorporated ROR IDs into all of those, which is fantastic. Here's the chart only for DataCite affiliations. You can see this, beginning to go up a lot in 2024. That spike, late 2024, that spike is largely due to that Japanese National Institute for Fusion Science. And ROR IDs and ORCID metadata doesn't have any spikes in it because it's a nice gradual upward slope. And then finally, I wanted to just mention something. We've actually been maintaining this for a while, and I thought I'd remind people or let people know that this exists. It's not really exactly about ROR adoption, but it is also about ROR adoption. We maintain a bibliography of mentions and uses of ROR in published research on the ROR website, ror.org/about. It's a Zotero bibliography. Because I think we don't really emphasize this a lot, but data scientists love ROR, and especially data scientists who are doing research in published research or research outputs. They're always publishing articles saying, hey, we did a lot of analysis of publications, and in order to clean up the affiliations, we matched them all to ROR IDs, and here's what we found. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. There are also a number of articles that people publish in different disciplines and subdisciplines saying, hey, we need to make our research data fair, and including ROR IDs is one way to do that. So this is kind of a fun thing to browse through if you've never seen it. I encourage you to take a look at this. Just look at all of the some of these articles are about ROR specifically. Some of them just mention ROR as a good standard to use. And some of them are research on various things that are just using ROR as a data set to match organization names to. So highly encourage you to look at that if you haven't already. And now with that, I will pass things over to Fatima Abu Lawi from Atypon to tell us about ROR and Atypon. Fatima, you all set?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Amanda. Nice to meet everyone. I will start with a quick brief for Atypon. If you please can go to the next slide. So actually, Atypon is a wide hosting platform for publishers. We are value propositions, and actually, Atypon does more than host the scholarly content to our customers. We empower partners to further research, amplify their impact using ongoing investments and technical expertise. We also utilizing and leveraging AIs in our solutions in order to have more engagement and more success with the hosting platforms for our customers. I've included a brief numbers of our publishers and our recent content, so you hope you can look into the numbers. Oh, my camera just worked. Okay, so I'm here today to talk to you about ROR IDs in Atypon and how we are using and utilizing that to provide our customers with more facilities. And next slide, please. So why RORs are actually matters to our customers, because it is a globally recognized identifier that is trusted, and our customers are showing more and more increasingly considering adding the ROR IDs to their articles, XMLs, in order to have more and more identified affiliations in order to increase the quality and reliability of their metadata. Also, our customers are highly interested in considering the importance of their ROR IDs to Crossref. They have actually started to sending their ROR IDs to Crossref. So in the next slide, I've talked about how Atypon has worked and what we have done. So during from the beginning of the year till March, we were working on supporting the Crossref, a new schema, which enables the ROR IDs. So currently our customers can easily include the ROR IDs in their article XMLs. It is now supported to all of our customers, as they can use the appropriate JAT XMLs to facilitate submission of their ROR IDs to Crossref API as well. And we also usually keep our clients updated. We have like blog posts where we inform our customers about the important initiatives, such as the capability of adding ROR IDs, and that this is available to our customers now. We've been reached out by a couple of our customers who are interested in that, and they started actually to use the ROR IDs. We are still in progress for that, and we are still making sure that our customers keep posted and keep informed that this is a facility, this is a great facility actually, that they can use now, and it's available for all of Atypon customers. On the last slide, I have included, I've done a quick analysis to 3 of our customers. They are actually sending ROR IDs to Crossref now. So through the ROR IDs, Crossref APIs, where checking the customer's ROR IDs, you can largely notice how it's been increasing. So for example, for American Society for Microbiology, from March to May, before or at the beginning of the year, they had only like 4 ROR IDs deposited to Crossref. Till now, they have larger and larger numbers, and the numbers is increasingly in a great way. I just included the numbers in order to show how it's important to our customers and how are they interested in depositing and using the ROR IDs. That's it. It's a brief about how ROR IDs are important to Atypon and how we are encouraging our customers to use it more and more. And those numbers and the blog post have been also posted to our customers to keep them informed. Actually, that's it from my side. I'm happy to hear any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. I appreciate that. And it's I have actually 2 questions. One, do you have a link to that blog post, or is that only for Atypon customers?
It is actually for our customers. However, we have a public blog post I can share with you. Sure.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great. Thank you. And then while you're doing that, or once you have done that, I did have another question about that, which is, I'm curious whether how aware your customers are of ROR. Is this something that they had never heard of, or is this something that you think they have heard of?
Actually, they did. We've been reached out from a couple of our customers asking about, do we have the capability to add ROR IDs? They are interested in adding it. We, through the new blog post that we are releasing soon, we are going to also facilitate and emphasize about the ROR IDs that are available and how important it is to our customers.
Wonderful. We of course would be happy to talk to your customers as well. So if you want to invite us to talk to your customers about ROR, we'd be happy to do that. And speaking of Atypon customers, we have one of them here now. We have David Haber from the American Society for Microbiology, who's going to tell us a little bit about their use of ROR. I know David was here earlier. Hopefully David is here now. David?
Can you guys hear me?
There you are.
Okay.
Yes, there you are. Hello.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this call. We can go to the next slide I have, and I can sort of talk about what we've been doing. So when we first started collecting affiliation data, we did it through our submission system. And whether it was back in the day of Grid, ROR, Ringgold, whatever the ID was, we were trying to collect them. And when Atypon told us they were going to soon be able to pass those ROR IDs into Crossref, we realized this was a perfect opportunity to start exposing those IDs we were trying to collect in our submission system into our production files and then down in our downstream deliverables. What immediately became apparent, though, was we were in a bit of a pickle because we have 2 data sources here. One data source being author profile information that we collect, for which we collect IDs for when authors do it correctly, and then the manuscript metadata, which is what actually publishes and what feeds the Crossref deliverables. This is a common problem I think everyone has, and we sort of gloss over it, I think, a lot of the time when we talk about this stuff. But the issue here is how do you get that wild affiliation data that you deal with in production matched up with any sort of submission metadata you may have? And is it even worthwhile doing that? Because do they match? And in our experience, what we found was they didn't match. Like most people, when they set up profiles, our authors just randomly put in information because they only need a name and an email domain. We have like Johns Hopkins University in Bangladesh. We have all kinds of weird things. And we try to control the selection process through integrations with various affiliation APIs, but that has no relationship to the manuscripts whatsoever. So if you can go to the next slide, I can talk about some of the things we've done. So obviously, we want a robot to do this, right? In an ideal world, we want it's kind of like the high wire mechanism where you're extracting metadata from manuscripts, validating it in submission, and then just passing it along as files get accepted and ready for publication. That is something we've experimented with, and we're still continuing down that path, but we needed to do something quickly for various reasons. One, we have processes that use ROR downstream that send messages to people. So it's real, and it's all built off our publication production metadata. So what we've done is we've built fairly elaborate lookups that require author and person validation in our production system to capture IDs. Because what we were terrified of is we have these wild names in production files, and we just randomly are matching ROR IDs to them, and then there's no relationship whatsoever, which we know happens because we look at the data and it's sometimes bonkers. So when Atypon announced that they were going to allow this, it sort of pushed us into motion to build our production processes and open it up to our XML. And so far, you can see by the uptake, like pretty much all our files have ROR IDs in them now. For all the affiliations, it's not, in all honesty, I don't know what our match rate is right now in terms of accuracy, but it's acceptable. It's probably at around 90%-ish. I know there's some probably bad data we're pushing out there. Our goal is to move that collection process at submission directly from the manuscript. So then we have more validation steps throughout the process. We'll have better data in our production files, and it'll be less work down the line. But right now, where our validation is occurring, it's an okay process. Atypon is great in passing it all through, and so far it's been great. So that's all I have to share today, and we're really excited that these IDs are being more greatly adopted. We have ideas about pulling in ORCID data, for example, to help validate and doing more accurate validation earlier on too. So I think all these movements with ORCID and submission systems in general from a publishing perspective is spectacular.
Well, I think your slides are spectacular, David.
Oh,
And you really are. I think in the chat we shared a link to the blog post about ASM's excellent metadata practices with Crossref, which is an enjoyable read. I really encourage you to read it. So it's clear to me that you are a trailblazer. Yes, APS and other Atypon clients are also using ROR IDs, but we do hope that this becomes a much more widely adopted practice, and we are glad that you are out there blazing the trail. So thank you for that. Any
Thank
questions?
you for creating all the cool tools, right? Like this is important. This is really important. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate that I think this is a really articulate explanation of how this works. For those of you, you know, just from showing those stats that I showed earlier about how many ROR IDs are in DataCite versus how few are in Crossref, part of the reason for that is that publishing workflows are more complex. Usually, generally, the kind of systems that are registering DOIs with DataCite have one system. You build ROR ID in that system and it's done, it's easy. Publishing workflows usually involve several systems, as you mentioned, author profiles, production XML, submission systems. And so maintaining that ROR ID through that workflow can be a very difficult thing and takes determination to do. So so I just find that really interesting that you are articulating that problem very clearly. So yeah. Any questions for David or general questions for the ROR team? I know that there were a lot of discussions about RAID in the chat. Very interesting conversations about that. Anyone doing anything cool with ROR that's new that they want to unmute and tell us about? Well, if not, we can end the call a little bit early, and we absolutely will. We don't usually send the chat, to be honest, just because we do send the recording and slides, but you're right, there are a lot of useful things. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I encourage you to save the chat right now. You should be able to, but yeah, I'll see if I can pull out some of the key links that have been shared in the chat, and I'll include those in the follow-up email that I send to you in a few days, probably before the end of the week. Okay, I'll extract the